All right, welcome to the Young Turks. Big show ahead, as always. And you know what? Great panel, as always. Anna Kasparian, Casper the Friendly Host. Kara Santa Maria, another TYT contributor now. Great to have you here, Kara. She's going to lead for a lot of the show. J.R. Jackson, of course, legendary TYT producer. And if Robin Sachs is here, there must be a legal issue.
Oh, either that or someone's getting arrested.
Right. And I believe that we have a bit of a case going on, Robin, in the Zimmerman Trayvon Martin situation.
It has been a blowout of a case. As a matter of fact, I think we've had 5 witnesses today, all kinds of testimony all over the place. So just to get us all on the same page, listen to what ABC has.
It was George Zimmerman's day to testify.
And he kept punching me.
Only he didn't even have to take the stand. Instead, the prosecution rolling out 5 versions of his story, a statement and interrogations at the police department, then this reenactment.
When he was hitting my head against it, felt like my head was going to explode.
To the lead homicide investigator, Chris Serino, seen here as he walks with Zimmerman through the recreation of that deadly encounter with Trayvon Martin, all of those versions remarkably consistent.
Either he was telling the truth, or he was a complete pathological liar.
Was there anything else in this case where you got the insight that he might be a pathological liar?
No.
And Zimmerman's claim of self-defense, at times jarring, describing that fatal moment.
As he banged my head again, I just pulled out my firearm and shot him.
But while it seemed to lose the round, the prosecution did score a few points.
Had you told this child that you were neighborhood watch and you were just wondering what the hell he was doing when he came up to your car, we probably wouldn't be here right now.
So do you remember Jose Baez, the attorney for Casey Anthony? Yeah, he represented, get this, represented. He was the attorney for the cop investigator. He was on the Today Show yesterday, and here's how he weighs it.
Well, Chris did a extremely thorough job, and as you can see, as the trial unfolds, there's been very little criticism about the investigation and the specific work of Chris. He did exactly what he was told throughout the course of the investigation until it became outright political. Well, I think a first-year law student could win this case with the evidence that they have. That doesn't say that George Zimmerman is innocent or guilty. I just think that the lack of evidence that this prosecution has to be able to, actually with the inability to rebut the claim of self-defense, is really going to be the defense's case to lose. However, I have seen the prosecution do an excellent job with what little they have.
So the consensus seems to be building that the prosecution is in a lot of trouble here. Robin, let's discuss that. So I get it. It's very hard to prove that Trayvon did not have him in a situation where he feared for his life. The prosecution has to kind of go out of its way to prove that. On the other hand, when Chris Serino, who, by the way, wanted him charged with manslaughter, right? Initially, he was overruled. He was the lead investigator and said, we should charge him with manslaughter.
That's right.
Right? Now, but even so, when he says, I didn't think that he was lying, I don't get that. Because Zimmerman says his head was banged into the ground 25 times. To me, that's an obvious lie. Obvious. 25 times would take like 7.5 minutes. You'd be like, bang, bang, bang. I mean, it takes a long time to do. Somebody says 25 times, I think you're lying. So then what really happened? The second part of it to me, and I'm wondering how relevant you think this is legally, right? Is Zimmerman says, I was going back to my car, right? And then Trayvon jumped me. BS. No, you weren't. Look, I can believe that he thought his life was in danger, but I cannot believe that he was following Trayvon the whole time, and then conveniently for a self-defense argument, he winds up switching and going back towards his car when Trayvon then becomes the aggressor. I think if I'm an investigator, BS. I don't believe that at all.
Well, here's the problem. Have you looked in the penal code lately? There's no felony BS statute. And that's the problem here, is that while I agree with you that we don't and can't necessarily believe what Zimmerman said, I don't necessarily know exactly what happened. And so as a former prosecutor, when I'm sitting here thinking of what charges to file, I know that I have to prove my case beyond a reasonable doubt. And I have to prove each and every element of the crime. And I can't just throw it up against the wall and hope that it's going to stick and that the jury's going to have all of the political outcry that everybody's had and convict just based on that. You have to know what exactly happened, and that's what I feel is missing.
I have a quick question. So can you use self-defense as a defense if you were the one who provoked an altercation?
Well, you can always try to use self-defense.
Right.
I mean, this is what happens here in California and in most states. What happens is when you say self-defense, all of a sudden the burden of proof switches to you, the person claiming self-defense, and then the defendant has to prove certain elements to show that they did all of the things that would make it to warrant self-defense.
Okay, that makes sense. But here he's not using stand your ground, so doesn't he have to do the same thing?
Yes, he should. I mean, that's why everyone's saying George Zimmerman is going to have to testify, except the prosecution just spoon-fed the testimony to him yesterday and today by putting on all of these tapes, by putting on the investigation. And I know that their goal is to show that he's a liar, but now they're just giving Zimmerman a pass to not have to testify. Why not make him take the stand and then use those tapes as impeachment to show why you're lying?
All right, one more legal question there. If you're using self-defense and now the burden is on you, can you still take the fifth?
That's the wrath of the taking the self-defense route. I mean, that you can't
use the fifth.
You can use the fifth if you can have someone else explain and prove all those elements. But in this particular case, it was Zimmerman and Trayvon Martin, and there's only one person to speak about it.
It sounds like because of the way the prosecution presented everything yesterday and today, as you were saying, that he doesn't have to take the stand now. I think I'm missing a connection here. Does he have to, or does he not have to?
Like if the prosecution calls him to the stand, does he have to go?
No, the prosecution cannot call him to the stand still. The prosecution, even if he says it's self-defense and his lawyers argue self-defense, he does not have to actually testify. He still has a right to remain silent.
So his interrogation tapes can be used to prove his case. He doesn't have to physically speak out now.
That's right. They did use them. The prosecution used those. Now, they used it under an exception that says prior inconsistent statements. They were using it to say he's a liar. They were using it for that purpose.
Well, perhaps he doesn't want to take the stand because he doesn't want to perjure himself.
Perhaps he just doesn't want to take the stand because he doesn't want to be cross-examined.
Now, look, to me, the great injustice, and I feel like I have to say this every time we cover the story, the great injustice was when he was not charged. Right. You know, and they did the toxicology report on the victim. They did the background check on the victim, and they didn't do it on the guy who shot him, right? That was a great injustice. That injustice has been solved, or cured at least, because we're having a trial. And you let the jury decide. I have no problems with that. And if they come out in a way that I don't agree with, okay, so be it, and I'm not in the jury, right? Now, as to what I think of this particular case, based on what we've seen, Robin, you actually swung me. But you did, but maybe not in the direction you think. Because I always thought it's going to be really hard to prove, right? But you reminded me, you're right. If you're doing a self-defense argument and you're not using stand your ground, the prosecution doesn't have to prove it. Zimmerman has to prove it. And does Zimmerman have enough proof that he definitively did not start the fight? No way! No way he has enough proof for that.
But this is the problem. That he didn't start the fight. He only has to prove that he did what was legally, or not legally, but that was what was necessary to prevent Martin from causing more bodily injury on him.
But this is the problem.
How you could have run away? I mean, look, good luck. Prove it.
Exactly.
Good luck. You're using self-defense.
Yeah.
You can't prove that.
But the problem is, in a tie, the tie goes to the defendant. So if you
but it's
don't
not
know
a tie.
what happened.
I don't think it's a tie. I think Zimmerman's a total liar. I think look, and it's, people say, oh, you're biased, whatever. No, I'm telling you, I just wanted a trial. We're in the middle of a trial. But if I'm on that jury and I'm seeing that evidence, and this guy says, oh, I got pounded 25 times, I had no choice. I had no choice. And by the way, so that we have testimony today from the person here, A17, right? This is the medical examiner. Okay, this is very relevant to this discussion that we're having. So let's watch the medical examiner's testimony.
Are any injuries in this photograph life-threatening?
No.
Are any of those abrasions life-threatening?
No.
And how would you classify the abrasions depicted in State 73?
Very insignificant.
Could those abrasions depicted in that photograph have come from a single blow?
Single impact, yes.
Very insignificant. That's what she said, in case you didn't hear it. So now you're going to have to prove that it was self-defense, and I got a medical examiner saying your injuries were, quote, very insignificant.
But does he have to prove that his life was in danger, or that he perceived his life to be in danger?
See, that's a really good point. And who says you have to get injured? Where's the rule that it says that you have to get injured? I'm just taking
if you shoot someone in the heart, yes, you have to prove, and you're using a self-defense argument.
But
if I'm on the jury, I'm like, wait, let me get this right. You chase a guy down, you start a fight, and then you shoot him in the chest, And now you tell me, well, you don't have enough evidence because that guy's dead. I say, well, you're the one using self-defense. Wrong again, Bob. You don't have enough evidence. You're going to jail for life.
In a scenario where you don't have to be injured, but you can still prove self-defense, would be where the other person has a weapon. But in this case, there was no weapon. So how was he a significant threat to you? How was your life in danger? I mean, if you have a medical examiner saying that your injuries were insignificant, and on top of that, Trayvon Martin had no weapon on him, and on top of it, you're the one who provoked the altercation in the first place. I don't see how he can say that self-defense was.
It just seems to me like it's a function of perspective, of perception, and that's what I'm wondering. Does it really come down to whether or not his life was being threatened, or whether or not he thought that his life was being threatened? If that's the real argument, this is going to be a lot murkier.
I mean, I think a crazy person could say, well, I saw a 5'10" black guy. My life is in danger because people have misconceptions about certain people in our country. They go, oh my God, he is this and I'm afraid of that. Therefore, my life is in danger, when that's their perception.
No, Chair's 100% right. Yeah. I remember when I was in law school, I got into a debate with some girls in class, and one of them claimed, well, he's a really large man, so as we were in the middle of that debate, I feared for my safety. But wait a minute, we were having a verbal debate. So because she shot me in the middle of the law class, I don't know, I perceived I was in danger.
Okay, I'm going to just take a devil's advocate here for 1 second. I mean, as a sex crimes prosecutor and as someone who helps educate people in protecting their kids, we teach our society to make judgments about people for our safety all the time. And we do tell people to listen to your inner and stay away from people that make you feel uncomfortable. So, I mean, we have to acknowledge that there is a reality to that in the outside world.
That's our problem.
Here's the reality I'm worried about, okay? And why this trial now matters for a different reason, okay? It's the precedent that's being set. Because if Zimmerman now gets away with it, right? And look, I'm not on the jury. You got to be on the jury. I say that 100 times, right? But if he gets released, it's a free pass to anyone to just chase somebody down with a gun, poke him, and the minute he pokes you back, shoot him in the head. And go, self-defense, ha-ha, Zimmerman got away with it, I can get away with it. And if I don't like someone, how easy is it to murder someone like that? I chase him down, I poke him, they poke back, shoot him in the head.
Yeah, but you're forgetting one very important aspect of the story, Cenk. Trayvon Martin allegedly called George Zimmerman a creepy-ass cracker.
Oh, well, yeah. And by the way, Zimmerman didn't even hear that. So it drives me crazy. All right, Robin, thank you.
But you're not going to talk about the Instagram picture? I want to know what you think about that. That's what I really am curious about.
I know. We're out of time. I know. Believe me, we'll get to it tomorrow. Yeah. Okay, this trial continues. All right, now, Tahrir Square, again, huge protests. And Morsi's now got about 24 hours left. Is he really going to step down? Now they're talking about violence in the streets because Muslim Brotherhood is going to fight back. So that's a really interesting situation. And also when we come back, the Arizona wildfires, the 19 guys we lost there, man, that is so touching. It's an unbelievable story. We'll tell you that when we return.